Admiral Kexthul stood on the bridge of his massive warship and looked at the small blue planet on his screen. He was 7 feet tall with gray skin and 4 arms. His species had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had conquered every world they found. This tiny planet called Earth would be no different. How many of these creatures live there? He asked his science officer. 8 billion, Admiral, came the reply. They are very small. Most are only 6 feet tall. They have weak bodies and short lives. Kexthul laughed. His empire had over 1 trillion citizens spread across 12,000 star systems. These humans were nothing. They had not even left their own solar system yet. Their ships were slow and primitive. Their weapons were basic metal projectiles. Send them the standard surrender message, he ordered out far below on Earth. Commander Jake. Morrison sat in his office at the United Earth Defense Force headquarters. He was a tall man with brown hair and serious eyes. He had served in the military for 20 years. He had never expected to face an alien invasion. The communication system beeped. Jake pressed a button and heard strange sounds. The computer translated the alien words into English. People of Earth, you will surrender to the Zephyrian Empire. You have 24 hours to give up your weapons and submit to our rule. If you refuse, we will destroy your planet. This is your only warning. Jake stared at the screen. He had trained for many battles, but never anything like this. He picked up his phone and called President Lisa Chong. Madam President, we have a problem, he said. 1 hour later, President Chong sat in the emergency meeting room with her top advisors. She was a smart woman who had led the country through many crises. But this was bigger than anything she had faced before. How many ships do they have? She asked. General Tony Rodriguez, a tough soldier with gray hair, looked at his notes. Our satellites show at least 10,000 vessels. Each one is 10 times bigger than our largest ship. We have maybe 300 ships that could fight in space. Dr. Helen Foster, the world's best expert on alien life, raised her hand. She was a thin woman with glasses who spent most of her time in laboratories. I have been studying their message. There is something strange about it. What do you mean? President Chong asked. They gave us 24 hours to surrender. That is very quick. Most conquerors give more time. They want people to think about it and get scared. But these aliens seem to expect us to give up immediately. Maybe they are just confident, General Rodriguez said. Or maybe they have never met anyone who fights back, Dr. Foster replied. Meanwhile, in space near Jupiter, Captain Ryan Mitchell flew his ship toward the edge of the solar system. The Defiant was Earth's most advanced spacecraft. It was still tiny compared to the alien ships, but it was fast and had good sensors. Ryan was a skilled pilot with steady nerves. He had volunteered for this dangerous mission because someone needed to see what they were up against. His crew of 12 brave men and women had families back on Earth. They all knew they might not return. Captain, I am picking up massive energy readings ahead, said his sensor operator, Lieutenant Amy Carter. She was a young engineer who had helped design many of Earth's space weapons. Put it on the main screen, Ryan ordered. What they saw made them all go quiet. Thousands of alien ships filled the space around Proxima Centauri. Each ship was dark gray and covered with weapon ports. The smallest ones were bigger than Earth's space stations. The largest ones were like floating cities. My God, whispered Dr. Ben Lewis, the mission scientist. How can we fight that? Ryan studied the enemy fleet. He had been in the military for 15 years. He had learned that every enemy had weaknesses. A key was finding them. Amy, scan their ships. Look for anything unusual, he said. She worked at her controls for several minutes. Captain, their weapons are very powerful, but they are all designed for long-range fighting. And their ships. move in perfect formations, very organized. What does that tell us? Ryan asked. They are used to fighting enemies who line up and shoot at each other like old sailing ships. They expect formal battles. Back on Earth, President Chang spoke to the world on television. People in every country watched as she delivered humanity's response to the alien threat. My fellow humans, she began. We have received a demand to surrender from an alien empire. They think we are weak because we are small. They think we will give up because they have bigger ships. They are wrong. She paused and looked directly into the camera. We are the species that survived ice ages when giant animals ruled the Earth. We are the people who crossed oceans in wooden boats. We fought through plagues and wars and disasters. We reached for the stars even when everyone said it was impossible. We did not come this far to kneel before bullies from space. We choose to fight. Around the world, people cheered. In military bases, volunteers lined up to join the space forces. In factories, workers began converting civilian ships into warships. In schools, children learned about the brave astronauts who would defend their world. Admiral Keck received Earth's response and could not believe it. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever refused to surrender. Most begged for mercy. These humans were actually choosing to fight. They must be insane, he told his officers. Do they not understand that we can destroy their planet with a single weapon? Perhaps they do not believe we are real, suggested his second-in-command. Their technology is so primitive, they may think this is some kind of trick. Then we will show them how real we are, Keck said. Prepare the fleet for battle. We will crush these insects and make an example of them. Every species in the galaxy will know what happens to those who defy the Empire. But as his ships began moving toward Earth, Keck felt something he had never experienced before. For the first time in his long military career, he was fighting an enemy that was not afraid of him. He did not know it yet, but that would make all the difference. Colonel Sam Turner sat in the war room looking at pictures of the alien fleet. He had been a soldier for 25 years and had studied every battle in human history. Now he had to figure out how to fight enemies with much better weapons and ships. We cannot win a normal space battle, he told the other officers. Their ships are too big and too strong. We need to think differently. He pointed to the screen, showing David fighting Goliath from the old Bible story. A small fighter can beat a giant if he is smart and fast. We will call this the David strategy. General Tony Rodriguez nodded. What do you have in mind? We use many small ships instead of a few big ones. We attack fast and run away before they can hit us back. We make them chase us into traps. But we do not have enough military ships, said Admiral Beth Collins. Then we make more, Sam replied. Every cargo ship, every passenger liner, every mining vessel. We turn them all into warships. Across the planet, the biggest change in human history began. In the shipyards of Earth, engineer Amy Carter led teams of workers who were turning peaceful spacecraft into weapons of war. She was young but very smart about machines and electronics. Take out all the passenger seats, she told her team as they worked on a cruise ship called the Star Dancer. Put in missile launchers where the restaurants used to be. Use the swimming pool area for ammunition storage. Dr. Ben Lewis worked with her to solve technical problems. He had designed many of Earth's space systems. Amy, the aliens use energy shields. Our missiles might not work against them. And we use different weapons, she said. Mining lasers, construction tools, anything that cuts or breaks things. If we cannot punch through their shields, we will find other ways to hurt them. In Space Dock, Captain Kelly Thompson watched, her cargo ship being changed into a fighting vessel. The Resilience had carried supplies between Earth and Mars for 10 years. Now it bristled with weapons made from mining equipment and factory tools. Kelly was a tough woman who had grown up on cargo ships. Her father had been a space trucker, and she knew how to fly in dangerous situations. Her new crew was unusual. For a warship, instead of trained soldiers, she had truck drivers, construction workers, teachers, and shop owners who had volunteered to fight. "Listen up, people," she told them during their first training session. "We are not the fancy space Navy. We are working folks who know how to get things done. The aliens think we are weak because we are small. Let us show them what Earth people can do when we get angry." Marine Sergeant Dan Cooper trained the civilian crews in combat. He was a short, tough man who had fought in many Earth wars. He had never trained people for space battles, but he knew how to teach fighters. "Forget everything you know about fair fighting," he told a group of former teachers and office workers. "The aliens are bigger and stronger than us. We win by being meaner and smarter. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and do not give them time to think." One of his students was a school teacher named Lisa Brooks. She had never held a weapon before. The aliens came. Now she practiced shooting and learned how to operate ship weapons. "Sergeant Cooper, I am scared," she admitted after training. "Good," he replied. "Scared people stay alive longer. Just remember, you are fighting for your children and their children. That makes you more dangerous than any alien warrior." The first test of human tactics came near Jupiter. Commander Steve Parker led a small fleet of 30 converted ships against a Zephyrian advance force of 300 vessels. Steve had been a delivery pilot before the war. He knew every rock and ice chunk in the outer solar system. The alien ships came in perfect formation, like soldiers marching in a parade. They expected the humans to line up and fight ship to ship. Instead, Steve's fleet scattered in all directions. "Remember the plan," he told his captains over the radio. "We are not trying to win a fair fight. We are trying to hurt them and survive." The human ships darted between asteroids and used Jupiter's moons for cover. They fired quick bursts at the alien ships and then hid before the aliens could shoot back. The Zephyrians had never seen such wild, unpredictable fighting. Admiral Kex-Thul watched the battle from his command ship and grew frustrated. Why do they not stand and fight like warriors? He demanded. "They are using hit-and-run tactics, Admiral." His tactical officer replied, "Very primitive but effective. Destroy them all." Kex-Thul ordered, but the humans were too fast and too smart. Captain Kelly Thompson led her converted cargo ship through a cloud of ice crystals. The alien sensors could not track her properly. She fired her mining lasers at a Zephyrian cruiser and damaged its main engines before disappearing again. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, 50 alien ships had been destroyed or damaged. The humans lost only 12 vessels. It was impossible, but it had happened. News reporter Alex Morgan broadcast the victory to Earth from his ship near the battle zone. He was a brave journalist who had volunteered to record the war for history. "People of Earth," he said into his camera, "today we proved that size does not always win. Our brave pilots have shown the galaxy that humans will not go quietly into the night. We may be small, but we have something the aliens do not understand. We have the will to fight for our freedom." On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. Recruitment centers filled with volunteers wanting to join the Space Forces. Factories worked day and night, building more ships and weapons. But Admiral Kex-Thul was not finished. He had thousands more ships and millions of warriors. The humans had won one small battle, but the war was just beginning. "Send reinforcements," he ordered. "These creatures are more clever than we thought. We will crush them with overwhelming force." However, something had changed in the galaxy. For the first time in 3,000 years, Someone had bloodied the nose of the mighty Zephyrian Empire. Other enslaved species heard the news and began to whisper about resistance. The tiny humans had lit a spark that would soon become a fire. General Lavra Martinez stood in the command center, watching hundreds of small human ships on her screen. She had learned from the first battle that humans could win by fighting like a swarm of angry bees instead of a traditional army. "We need to be everywhere at once," she told her officers. "The aliens expect us to fight like they do, with big formations and careful planning. Instead, we will attack from all directions at the same time." The new human fleet looked nothing like the organized alien armadas. Converted mining ships flew next to luxury yachts that had been fitted with weapons. Racing ships buzzed around cargo vessels loaded with missiles. It looked like chaos, but it was controlled chaos. Dr. Chris Johnson had been studying the alien prisoners from the first battle. He was an expert on how minds work, and he had discovered something important about the Zephyrians. "They are not used to fear," he explained to the military leaders. "For 3,000 years, they have been the ones everyone else was afraid of. When someone fights back, it confuses them and makes them make mistakes. How do we use that?" asked Colonel Sam Turner. "We make them more afraid," Chris replied. "We use psychological warfare. We make them think we are crazy and dangerous." Soon, human ships began broadcasting strange messages toward the alien fleet. Earth's loudest rock music blasted through. Space, battle cries, and war songs from every human culture filled the radio waves. The aliens had never heard anything like it. The Zephyrians were used to polite surrender messages or formal battle challenges. Instead, they heard humans screaming about freedom and promising to fight to the death. Some human pilots sent videos of themselves, laughing while their ships were on fire and falling apart. "What kind of species enjoys fighting when they are losing?" asked Admiral Kexthol, second in command. "Insane ones," the admiral replied, but his voice was not as confident as before. Admiral Beth Collins led the Second Fleet in a daring mission to attack an alien supply base near Volt 359. She was a calm, smart leader who had risen through the ranks by being careful and thorough. But this mission required her to be bold and take big risks. Dr. Paul Adams had figured out how to make human ships invisible to alien sensors by copying technology from captured enemy vessels. It was dangerous and experimental, but it worked. "Remember," Beth told her captains, "we get in fast, destroy everything we can, and get out before they know what hit them. No heroes, no unnecessary risks. Our job is to hurt their ability to supply their main fleet." The attack was perfect. 200 human ships appeared out of nowhere in the middle of the alien supply depot. They destroyed fuel tanks, ammunition, storage, and repair facilities before the surprised aliens could organize a defense. The psychological effect was even more important than the physical damage. The Zephyrians had thought their rear areas were completely safe. Now they realized that the crazy humans could strike anywhere at any time. Captain Roy Hughes made the next breakthrough during a battle near Saturn. He commanded a squadron of 12 small ships that had been racing vessels before the war. His pilots were former stunt flyers and video game champions who loved dangerous flying. Roy noticed that the big alien ships had trouble tracking multiple small targets that moved unpredictably. Their weapons were designed to hit large, slow-moving targets at long range. "Spread out and fly like you are drunk," he told his pilots. "Make sudden turns, roll upside down, do whatever crazy thing comes to mind. Make it impossible for them to predict where you will be." The tactic worked brilliantly. Roy's tiny squadron danced around a massive alien battle cruiser, hitting it from every angle while its big guns could not track them. Within an hour, they had destroyed a ship that was 1,000 times larger than all their vessels combined. But the greatest moment came when Lieutenant Commander Grace Taylor faced impossible odds. Her fighter, called the Hornet, had been damaged in battle and was losing power. She was alone, surrounded by 5 alien warships. Grace was a quiet woman who had been a test pilot before the war. She never boasted or made speeches, but she never backed down from a challenge. As her ship's systems failed around her, she made a decision that would become legend. "Command, this is Grace Taylor in the Hornet," she said calmly into her radio. "My ship is finished, but I am not. Tell my family I love them. Tell Earth we were here." She aimed her dying fighter at the largest alien ship and pushed her engines to maximum power. The Zephyrians tried to stop her, but she was too small and too fast. The Hornet crashed into the alien dreadnought's reactor core, and both ships exploded. In a ball of fire that could be seen from Mars, Grace's final words, "Tell them we were here," became the battle cry of the human fleet. Pilots painted the words on their ships. Soldiers shouted them before attacks. The phrase spread through the human forces and gave them courage in the darkest moments. The aliens began to fear those words. When they heard humans saying, "Tell them we were here," they knew that desperate, dangerous fighters were coming who would never surrender. Admiral Kexthul received reports of the human victories and could not believe what he was reading. His mighty fleet was being hurt by converted merchant ships and civilian volunteers. It was impossible, but it was happening. How can they keep fighting? He asked his staff. "We have destroyed hundreds of their ships. We have killed thousands of their warriors. Why do they not surrender?" "Admiral," said his intelligence officer, "I have been studying their communications. I do not think they know how to surrender. Their entire history is full of wars where they fought impossible odds and refused to give up." For the first time in his long career, Admiral Kexthul felt a cold fear in his heart. He had fought many enemies, but he had never faced anyone who seemed to get stronger the more you hurt them. The humans were not just winning battles. They were proving to the entire galaxy that the mighty Zephyrian Empire could be defeated. On distant worlds, enslaved species heard the news and began to dream of freedom. The tiny humans had done something no one thought possible. They had made the galactic bullies afraid. Emperor Zalfane sat on his golden throne and read the battle reports with growing anger and fear. He was the ruler of 12,000 star systems and 1 trillion citizens. His empire had never lost a war in 3,000 years. Now these tiny humans were making him look weak in front of the entire galaxy. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked his war council. "Over 2,000, Your Majesty," replied General Vextar. "The humans destroyed our supply base at Wolf 359. They have captured 3 of our outer colonies. Our commanders are requesting more reinforcements." "More reinforcements?" the Emperor shouted. "I have already sent half our entire fleet to crush 1 small planet. How can they still be fighting?" But the real problem was not just the military losses. News of the human victories had spread to every corner of the empire. On 17 different worlds, enslaved species were rising up against their Zephyrian masters. The human infection of rebellion was spreading faster than the empire could stop it. On the planet Kethver, the blue-skinned Kelthani people had served as slaves for 800 years. When they heard that tiny humans were defeating the mighty empire, they began to hope. Within days, they were fighting in the streets against their alien oppressors. "If humans can fight the empire, so can we," said their leader, a brave Kelthani named JOR_WEL. Similar uprisings began on planet after planet. The Empire's forces were stretched thin as they tried to fight both the human fleet and rebellions across their territory. Vice Admiral Matt Freeman saw his chance to strike a major blow against the aliens. He commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled, over 5,000 ships of all sizes. His target was the Empire's main staging area at Alpha Centauri, where 20,000 Zephyrian vessels were gathering for a final assault on Earth. Matt was a calm, experienced officer who had planned this attack for months. He knew it would be the most important battle of the war. If the humans could win here, they could save Earth. If they lost, humanity would be extinct within days. "This is our moment," he told his captains over the radio. "Everything we have learned, every tactic we have developed, all of it comes down to this battle. Fight like humans. Fight for Earth." The battle began when human ships emerged from hyperspace in the middle of the alien formation. Instead of attacking in a line like traditional space navies, they scattered in all directions like an explosion of deadly fireflies. Captain Linda Shaw flew her converted mining ship through a field of asteroids, using her knowledge of rock formations to confuse alien sensors. She had been an asteroid miner for 15 years before the war. Now she used that experience to destroy enemy vessels 10 times larger than her own ship. The key to human victory came from an unexpected source. Dr. Julia Brooks, a quiet scientist who studied space physics, had discovered how to jam the Empire's faster-than-light communication system. She had figured out the frequency of their signals and built devices that could block them. "If we can cut off their communications," she explained it to Admiral Freeman, "their ships cannot coordinate with each other. They will be fighting blind." The jamming devices worked perfectly. Suddenly, the organized Zephyrian fleet became thousands of separate ships with no way to talk to each other. They could not share information about human attack patterns or call for help when they were in trouble. Without communication, the alien commanders fell back on old tactics that did not work against human fighters. They tried to form defensive lines, but the humans simply flew around them. They attempted to retreat in formation, but got confused and crashed into each other. The psychological effect was devastating. Zephyrian crews had always depended on orders from their superiors. When the communication system failed, many ships simply stopped fighting and tried to escape. Others surrendered rather than face the terrifying humans alone. Admiral Kexthul, commanding the alien forces, watched his mighty fleet fall apart around him. Ships that had conquered hundreds of worlds were being destroyed by converted garbage. Trucks and passenger liners. The humans fought with a wild creativity that his rigid military mind could not understand or counter. "This is impossible," he said to his bridge crew. "How can inferior beings defeat the greatest fleet in galactic history?" His second-in-command looked at the tactical display showing human ships swarming over their forces like angry insects. "Admiral, I think we have been asking the wrong question. We keep asking how they can beat us. Maybe we should ask why they refuse to lose." As the battle turned into a complete human victory, Admiral Kexthul made a decision that shocked everyone. Who knew him? Rather than face capture by human forces, he chose to end his own life in the traditional Zephyrian way. "I cannot bear the shame of losing to these creatures," he said in his final message to Emperor Zal Thane. "Your Majesty, I warn you with my last breath. These humans are not a species to be conquered. They are a force of nature to be feared. They do not know how to quit. They get stronger when you hurt them. They turn every weakness into a weapon." The Admiral's suicide sent shock waves through the Zephyrian fleet. If their greatest military leader preferred death to facing humans, what hope did ordinary soldiers have? Commander Rick Stewart led human forces in liberating 3 Zephyrian-controlled worlds. When his ships arrived, the enslaved alien populations greeted them as heroes and saviors, rather than conquerors. On the planet Velthor, millions of oppressed beings cheered as human fighters drove away their Zephyrian masters. Children who had never known freedom ran through the streets, singing songs about the brave humans who had crossed the stars to help them. "Thank you," said an elderly Velthuri leader to Rick through a translator. "We have waited 300 years for someone to stand up to the Empire. We never dreamed our saviors would come from such a small, distant world." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire's propaganda machine tried to hide the truth, but they could not stop the news from spreading. The impossible had happened. The mighty Empire was losing a war to a species they had dismissed as insects. Emperor Zalthane realized that his empire was collapsing. Rebellions raged on dozens of worlds. His fleets were being destroyed by human tactics they could not understand. His own generals were beginning to question his leadership. For the first time in his long reign, the Emperor felt truly afraid. Admiral Diane Clark stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked at the greatest fleet in human history. 10,000 ships from Earth floated in space around her, ready for the final battle. There were military vessels, converted cargo ships, passenger liners with weapons, and mining craft turned into fighters. Every ship carried people who had volunteered to risk their lives for freedom. Diane had started the war as a simple cargo pilot. Now she commanded more ships than any human in history. She had learned that courage was not about being unafraid. It was about doing what needed to be done, even when you were terrified. "All ships, this is Admiral Clark," she said into her radio. "Today we finish what they started. Today we show the galaxy that bullies cannot win when good people stand together." The target was the Zephyrian home system, where Emperor Zalthane waited with the last remains of his once mighty empire. The alien ruler had pulled back his surviving forces to make a final desperate stand around his home world. Before the battle began, Diane sent a message to Emperor Zalthane. It was broadcast on all frequencies, so every being in the galaxy could hear it. "Emperor Zalthane, this is Admiral Diane Clark of the Terran Republic. Your empire has fallen. Your fleets are destroyed. Your enslaved peoples are free. Surrender now, and your people will be treated with mercy. Continue to fight, and we will remove you from power by force." The Emperor's reply came quickly. His voice was full of rage and fear. "I am Zalthane, ruler of the galaxy. I will never surrender to inferior creatures from a backward planet. My ancestors conquered the stars when your species was still living in caves." "Your ancestors are not here," Diane replied calmly. "You are, and you are about to learn what happens when you mess with humans." The final battle began as the sun rose over the Zephyrian home world. Human ships came from every direction, using the same swarm tactics that had worked so well throughout the war. But this time they faced desperate enemies fighting for their lives and their home. The battle was fierce and bloody. Zephyrian warriors fought with the courage of cornered animals. Human pilots pushed their ships to the breaking point. Space filled with the light of exploding vessels and the communications of brave people facing death. Captain Roy Hughes led his squadron of racing ships in a daring attack on the Emperor's palace shields. He had survived every battle of the war and become one of humanity's greatest heroes. His ships danced through enemy fire like leaves in a hurricane. "This is for Grace Taylor and all the others who died to get us here," he shouted as his ship fired its weapons at the shield generator's doctor. Julia Brooks, now serving as the fleet's science officer, worked frantically to break through the planet's defensive systems. She had spent months studying Zephyrian technology and knew their weaknesses better than anyone. "I have found a way through their shields," she announced. "But someone will have to fly directly into their energy field. It will be very dangerous." "I will do it," volunteered Captain Jake Morrison, the same officer who had received the first alien surrender demand so long ago. He had fought in every major battle and earned the respect of everyone in the fleet. As Jake's ship dove toward the planet's surface, breaking through the defensive shields, something unexpected happened. The Galactic Council, a group of elder species that had stayed neutral throughout the war, suddenly appeared with a massive fleet. Emperor Zalfane, announced Council Speaker Mordon, by the authority of the Galactic Council, you are ordered to surrender immediately. Your empire is dissolved. Your reign of terror is over. The Emperor was furious. You dare side with these primitive humans against me? I demand your support, as agreed in the ancient treaties. The ancient treaties are void, Mordon replied. You have lost a war to a species you claimed was inferior. Your empire is built on lies about your invincibility. The humans have shown the galaxy that you can be defeated. Surrounded by human ships and abandoned by his former allies, Emperor Zalfane finally realized that his empire was truly finished. His last loyal ships were surrendering or fleeing. His people were calling for peace. The surrender ceremony took place aboard Admiral Jake Morrison's ship, now renamed the Indomitable. Representatives from dozens of species came to witness the end of the Zephyrian Empire. Emperor Zalfane walked slowly up the ramp of the human ship. He was still tall and proud, but his eyes showed the defeat in his heart. For 3,000 years, his people had ruled through fear and violence. Now they were beaten by a species that had learned to fight for love and freedom. I, Emperor Zalfane, ruler of the Zephyrian Empire, do hereby surrender unconditionally to the humans of Earth, he said in a voice that shook with emotion. I acknowledge that my empire is dissolved and my people are defeated. Admiral Morrison accepted this surrender with dignity. Your Majesty, the war is over. Your people will be treated fairly and given the chance to live in peace. President Lisa Chang, who had arrived from Earth for the ceremony, announced the formation of the Terran Republic. Today begins a new age in galactic history. An age where freedom defeats tyranny, where courage defeats fear, where small people can stand up to great bullies and win. The former Zephyrian worlds were given their independence. Enslaved species were freed to govern themselves. Earth became the capital of a new galactic government based on the principles of liberty and justice that humans had fought for throughout their history. Admiral Ryan Mitchell, now promoted to commander of the Galactic Defense Force, looked out from Earth's orbital command station at the stars beyond. The same stars that had once held threat and danger now sparkled with hope and possibility. We did it, he said to his old friend Jake Morrison. A few years ago, we were alone on one small planet. Now we are the guardians of galactic freedom. We did not do it alone, Jake replied. Every species that chose to fight for freedom helped us win. Every person who refused to give up made this victory possible. The story of the galactic empires. Defeat by tiny humans spread throughout the galaxy and beyond. It became a legend that inspired countless beings to stand up against bullies and fight for what was right. Children on 1,000 worlds learned about the brave humans who had crossed the vast darkness of space to bring freedom to the galaxy. They learned that size did not matter, that courage could overcome any obstacle, and that people who fought for justice could defeat any enemy. The tiny humans had kept their promise. They had shown the galaxy that they were there, and they had changed everything forever.